So Shannon Sharpe has had some issues, okay? Last year, Shannon Sharpe somehow didn't know how to turn off Instagram Live while he was having some extracurricular activities with somebody, a friend, right? And he's like, I don't know how to use Instagram.
A $50 million lawsuit, a secret settlement, and a 19-year-old OnlyFans model. This isn't just a scandal, it's a cautionary tale. When the news first broke, it felt like the kind of wild headline you'd scroll past thinking it was clickbait. Shannon Sharpe, NFL Hall of Famer turned media giant, accused of sexual misconduct by a woman nearly 3 decades younger. But this wasn't a rumor. It was real. It was legal. And now, it's gone, just like that. Quietly settled, silenced, dismissed with prejudice. But the silence, that's what screams the loudest. What was supposed to be buried by a multi-million-dollar payout is now unraveling in whispers, screenshots, and deleted Instagram posts. The details they wanted kept private are now the very details the public is clawing to understand. This isn't just about one man. It's about the price of power, the weaponization of NDAs, and how quickly the line between victim and villain gets blurred in the age of exposure. And just when the dust began to settle, another scandal hit. A tech CEO caught in 4K cheating on his wife at a Coldplay concert resigns after the footage explodes online. The woman, his coworker, the consequences? Immediate. So what's really happening behind the scenes in these high-profile relationships? How much truth can money actually erase? And more importantly, who's next? Let's break this all down. The allegations that rocked Shannon Sharpe's image. It all began with a bombshell filing on April 20th, 2025. Tony Busby, the same high-profile attorney known for taking on billionaires and athletes alike, dropped a lawsuit in Nevada that sent shockwaves through the sports world. His client, listed only as Jane Doe, accused Shannon Sharpe of sexual misconduct. But this wasn't some vague claim from a random stranger. According to both parties, they shared a long-term, consensual, but deeply tumultuous relationship. And that's what made it messy. Sharpe wasn't denying the relationship. In fact, his legal team confirmed it outright. But what they didn't want out in public were the intimate details of that relationship, details they were reportedly willing to pay millions to keep buried. The public barely had time to react before both legal teams pulled the emergency brake. After what was described as respectful negotiations, the case was suddenly over, settled, dismissed, swept away with the phrase dismissed with prejudice, which legally means it can never be refiled. On the surface, it looked like closure. But let's be honest, when someone's willing to drop millions just to avoid letting the truth come out in court, that doesn't sound like closure. That sounds like damage control. And what really rattled fans wasn't just the settlement, it was the silence that followed. No press conference, no apology, no denial, just a vague legal statement and a giant question mark. What exactly happened behind closed doors? This wasn't just a crack in Shannon Sharpe's polished image, it was a crater. A man known for his discipline, intensity, and no-nonsense attitude now faced the one thing no celebrity wants: doubt. And it wasn't just doubt about the allegations. It was doubt about how far he'd go to keep his secrets buried. But as we'd soon find out, this case was about more than one man's image. It was about power, leverage, and just how expensive silence has become in the age of receipts, the $10 million offer, and the power of silence. Before the ink was even dry on the lawsuit, whispers started swirling about a quiet offer made behind closed doors. An offer that allegedly started at $10 million. Let that sink in. $10 million, not to go to trial, not to fight back publicly, but to keep things quiet. Sources close to the case revealed that Shannon Sharpe's legal team wanted to avoid a messy public showdown. And who could blame them? The allegations weren't just damaging, they were personal. They threatened to unravel a legacy Sharpe had spent decades building, both on the field and in front of the camera. But here's the thing about hush money. It never stays hush for long. The moment that number, $10 million, leaked to the press, the story shifted. No longer was it just about what happened between Shannon and the young woman. Now the question was, what was he so desperate to hide? According to NBC News, the final settlement likely exceeded the original $10 million offer. And when a number that high is being floated around for a private resolution, you know the stakes were enormous. This wasn't a token payout to avoid bad press. This was a calculated transaction, a financial firewall designed to keep certain truths from ever reaching the courtroom. And yet, some of those details slipped through anyway. Because here's where things get twisted. Sharpe's team tried to keep everything contained, but both sides ended up leaking bits and pieces. It became a quiet tug of war in the media, an unspoken battle between reputation and retribution. One side tried to protect a brand, the other tried to make sure the story was still heard, and in the end, neither side walked away clean. Because when you put a price tag on silence, the public doesn't forget. They dig deeper. They wonder what could be so scandalous, so incriminating, that it cost a former NFL superstar more than some people make in a lifetime just to bury it. And more importantly, they start asking, who else has done the same thing and gotten away with it? But the real twist? The woman at the center of it all wasn't just walking away with a settlement, she was walking away from something else entirely. OnlyFans model retires. Coincidence? Not long after news of the settlement surfaced, something strange happened. The woman listed as Jane Doe, who had been publicly identified during the legal drama despite the pseudonym, posted a farewell message to her social media. The message? A formal goodbye to her OnlyFans career. Today, I've decided to retire from OnlyFans. The statement read, "Thank you for the incredible support you've shown me over the past few years. This community has given me a life I could have never imagined. I'm truly excited for this next chapter." It sounded heartfelt. It sounded sincere. But it also sounded perfectly timed, because this wasn't just a retirement post. It was an exit strategy. Almost as quickly as it was uploaded, the post vanished, deleted without explanation. But not before screenshots were taken and circulated by blogs, fan accounts, and digital sleuths. The repost to her story added another cryptic layer. What a journey it's been. To the public, this wasn't just a woman leaving a platform, it felt like part of the deal. Was her retirement a condition of the settlement? A way to quietly disappear now that the payout had landed? Or was it an attempt to rewrite the narrative, to transition from scandal to new beginnings before the backlash got worse? Because, make no mistake, once you're at the center of a $50 million firestorm, your name never really disappears. Especially not when you're 19, linked to a media mogul nearly 3 times your age, and have just walked away from a career that was bringing in serious income. And that's what left people asking, why now? The timing couldn't be ignored. The lawsuit ends, the money is rumored to be massive, and suddenly, the woman who sparked the case fades out of the spotlight on her own terms. But was it truly her choice? Or was it the final chapter in a settlement that cost millions and still couldn't guarantee silence? Whatever the truth is, it left fans, critics, and the internet asking one unavoidable question. What did she walk away with? And what did she give up in return? Shannon Sharpe's reputation on the line. For years, Shannon Sharpe was untouchable, a Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Famer, the sharp-tongued voice of sports media who never held back, never fumbled a debate, and never let his image crack. Until now. Because when his legal team confirmed the relationship with the Jane Doe at the center of the lawsuit, they weren't just admitting to a private affair, they were handing the public ammunition. She wasn't a stranger, she wasn't anonymous. She was someone Sharpe had known intimately, and someone who, at just 19 years old, represented a massive age gap that ignited immediate backlash online. And while the legal case may have ended amicably, public opinion didn't. Not even close. People didn't just want to know what happened, they wanted to know why a man in his 50s, renowned for discipline, intelligence, and experience, got involved with someone barely out of high school. Even worse, many believed Sharpe should have seen the red flags coming. A young adult working in adult content, reaching out to a powerful man twice her age, critics argued it wasn't just irresponsible, it was predictable. And when the phrase, "he should have known better," starts trending online, reputation damage becomes unavoidable, especially for someone who built a brand on calling out others. Sharpe had once taken pride in being the one to say what needed to be said, but now his silence was speaking volumes. No interviews, no denials, just a sterile legal statement and a cloud of suspicion. The sports world began to split. Some fans defended him, calling it a personal matter between consenting adults. Others saw it differently, a textbook example of imbalance, poor judgment, and a man who thought his fame would protect him from consequences. And in today's culture, that kind of miscalculation doesn't go unnoticed. It goes viral. The whispers about Sharpe's fall from grace weren't just limited to tabloids. They reached locker rooms, barbershops, podcasts, and YouTube comment sections. Because the real damage wasn't in the lawsuit itself, it was in the doubt. The kind that lingers, the kind that makes people question everything you've ever said, stood for, or believed. And once public trust starts to crack, no amount of settlements can patch it back together. But the real danger for Sharpe wasn't just the fallout from this situation, it was the fear of what or who might come next. The precedent fear. Will more come forward? Once a high-profile figure settles a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, it sends a message, and not just to the public. It sends a signal to anyone who's ever had a similar story. Because when you quietly cut a check for what could be upward of $10 million, people start asking, was it guilt or just fear of exposure? And just like that, a new danger emerges. Not from the original scandal, but from the precedent it creates. If Shannon Sharpe paid to make this case disappear, what's stopping others from coming forward? In the age of viral storytelling and courtroom transparency, all it takes is one leak, one receipt, one accusation, and suddenly your past isn't your past anymore. It's front-page news. Legal experts call it the floodgate effect. When one person wins or settles big, it emboldens others who've been sitting silently. And in a world where influencers, fans, and former acquaintances can all become whistleblowers, the risk multiplies. That's the ticking clock behind every celebrity scandal that ends in settlement. It's not the money, it's the momentum it gives to anyone watching from the sidelines. And this isn't just speculation. People are already talking on podcasts, in Twitter spaces, in Reddit threads. They're wondering, was this the first time? Was this the only time? And if she got paid, should others try too? Some call it opportunism, others call it justice delayed. But no matter how you frame it, one thing is clear. Shannon Sharpe just became a case study, not in guilt, not in innocence, but in vulnerability. Because by settling, he avoided a trial, but invited a pattern. And in today's digital world, patterns get exposed faster than ever. Whether Sharpe realizes it or not, his name is now part of a wider conversation, one that asks how many other powerful men have sidestepped accountability by simply writing a check. And if the rumors are true, that this wasn't an isolated case, then the next headline might not involve a settlement. It might involve a courtroom. The Astronomer CEO parallel, scandal after scandal. As if one scandal wasn't enough, another one erupted, this time in the tech world. Just days after Shannon Sharpe's settlement hit the headlines, Andy Byron, the CEO of data startup Astronomer, found himself caught in a firestorm of his own making. It started with a concert, Coldplay, a stadium, a massive crowd, and a jumbotron that exposed more than just the band's setlist. There, in crystal clear HD, was Byron, arm in arm with a woman who wasn't his wife. And that woman, she worked for his company, in the human resources department no less. Within hours, screenshots flooded social media. Blogs picked it up. Reddit threads exploded. It was no longer just a cheating rumor. It became a corporate scandal. The fallout was swift. First came the company statement. Byron was being placed on leave. Then came the resignation. The board accepted it quietly, but the message was loud and clear. Leadership and scandal don't mix. But this wasn't just about one CEO's personal life. It was about professional boundaries, power dynamics, and the dangerous overlap between private behavior and public accountability. Just like with Sharpe, the internet wasn't forgiving. Questions swirled. If the woman hadn't worked at the company, would he still have been forced out? Was this purely about optics? Or was there something deeper beneath the surface? Because here's what no PR statement could erase. The fact that the woman worked under him, literally and structurally, changed everything. And for a man in a position of power, being caught in such a situation wasn't just morally questionable, it was legally risky. But the deeper issue, it mirrored the same theme from the Sharpe case. A grown man, successful and established, sabotaging everything for a moment of pleasure. A lack of discipline, a loss of perspective. And the public was quick to connect the dots. Two men, two industries, two very different worlds, but both brought down by the same thing: reckless personal decisions that bled into professional consequences. It raised a chilling question across boardrooms and locker rooms alike. If this is how powerful men behave when they think no one's watching, how many others are hiding in plain sight? And that's where the story takes an even darker turn, because scandals like these aren't isolated, they're contagious. What these men aren't learning. With every new scandal, you'd think the lesson would be obvious. Don't mix business with pleasure. Don't risk your legacy for lust. don't underestimate the power of exposure in the digital age. And yet, they keep doing it. Whether it's a legendary athlete or a tech CEO on the rise, these men seem to fall into the same trap, thinking their success makes them untouchable, that their status is a shield, that they can live double lives with no consequences. But the truth? It always finds its way out. Just listen to what people are saying online. The Breakfast Club didn't hold back. Charlemagne the God said it plain. These aren't young mistakes. These are grown men with everything to lose, and no discipline to keep it. They're not 20-somethings still figuring life out. They're established, respected, and in some cases idolized. Yet here they are, getting exposed over and over for the same behavior: lack of control, poor judgment, and thinking they're immune. And the public is tired. Tired of apologies that come too late. Tired of settlements used as silence. Tired of watching powerful men fumble their entire futures for a fleeting moment of ego or temptation. What makes it worse is the pattern. First, it's Sharpe with the OnlyFans scandal, then it's Byron with the Jumbotron betrayal, and in both cases, these men didn't just risk embarrassment, they voluntarily detonated their reputations. And for what? That's the part that stings, because when you're sitting on millions, building empires, shaping culture, how is it that the one thing you can't control is yourself? These aren't just personal mistakes, they're cultural moments, cautionary tales being broadcast in real time. And yet, nothing changes. Why? Because ego makes you think you're the exception, that you're smarter than the last guy who got caught, that it won't be your name trending next to the word scandal, until it is, and by then, it's too late. The fallout and unanswered questions. With the dust settling, one thing is clear: the headlines may be fading, but the consequences are just beginning. Shannon Sharpe's name is still trending, not because of a sports take, not because of an interview, but because of a scandal that won't go away. His silence now feels louder than anything he's ever said on air. Fans are divided, brands are watching, and behind the scenes, you can bet his legal team is praying no one else comes forward. And then there's her, the woman at the center of the storm. She may have retired from OnlyFans, but she didn't disappear. Her social accounts are still active. She's teasing new projects and thanking her followers. But the question remains, was this her choice or a condition? What was agreed upon in that settlement? What power dynamics were at play? And why was that heartfelt farewell post removed so quickly? We may never know the full truth. That's the price of a private settlement. But even in silence, there are echoes, and the internet is listening closely. Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley, Astronomer is in recovery mode. Their CEO is gone, their reputation's shaken, and the woman involved? Still employed, still protected by HR, or is she? The company's been tight-lipped on her status, avoiding any real acknowledgement of the internal power imbalance that triggered the scandal. And that silence, it's fueling even more speculation. Because what happens when a woman is caught in the fallout, but isn't publicly blamed? Does the company protect her, or quietly phase her out when the noise dies down? There are no clear answers, just uncomfortable questions. The kind that companies, celebrities, and media empires hate having to answer. But more than anything, both cases leave behind a trail of doubt. Will Shannon Sharpe ever speak publicly about the settlement? Will more women come forward now that money has exchanged hands? And how many more CEOs, athletes, or influencers are hiding skeletons just one slip-up away from exposure? In both stories, the pattern is the same: power, secrecy, and collapse. But as society keeps watching, one truth becomes harder to ignore. The real fallout isn't in courtrooms, it's in the court of public opinion. And right now, that court has no mercy. These weren't just scandals. They were case studies in ego, temptation, and what happens when powerful men believe the rules don't apply to them. Shannon Sharpe didn't lose in court, he avoided court altogether. But in doing so, he lost something far more valuable: trust. The public may not know every detail of what happened, but the silence, the payout, and the sudden retirement of a 19-year-old model say more than any verdict ever could. And over in the tech world, another giant fell, not because of a lawsuit, not because of a crime, but because of optics, perception, and a camera that caught him slipping in the worst way possible. Both men had it all: careers, influence, reputations built over decades. And yet, it only took one moment, one decision, to unravel it. What these stories reveal is that discipline isn't optional at the top, It's the difference between legacy and liability, between being respected and becoming a cautionary tale. And while these two may have settled, resigned, or moved on, the internet doesn't forget. Screenshots live forever. Deleted posts still get reposted. And every time a man in power tries to sweep something under the rug, someone's already watching, already recording, already waiting to bring it to light. So, what does this all mean? It means we're in a new era. One where NDAs don't guarantee silence, where settlements don't erase suspicion, and where the real courtroom isn't in Nevada. It's on your screen, in your feed, and in the minds of millions who are tired of watching the same story play out over and over again. Because in the end, the question isn't whether they were guilty. It's how many others are out there, thinking they'll never get caught.